James T. Kirk.
The one and only.
17 separate temporal violations, the biggest file on record.
Man was a menace.
In the past episodes, those of which you can view in the top right-hand corner or the link below, I've broken down the various use of time travel, the impacts it's had on Starfleet, and how the Federation has ultimately utilized such methods since the early 23rd century. We've also discussed the various wars, cold or otherwise, that such capabilities bring, along with its advantages. However, one thing that I've waited till now to consider to really get into is some of the ancillary groups that would have utilized this technology.
I'm Dahmer.
Luxley, Department of Temporal Investigations.
We've been expecting you. I guess you boys from Temporal Investigations are always on time.
Where's Captain Sisko?
As we've discussed, the use of time travel for Starfleet would apparently atrophy into the 24th century. It wouldn't necessarily be unknown, possibly even a rung above rare, but the actual traveling through time wouldn't be something included in normal Federation and Starfleet operations. Whether we're looking at the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Picard, or even early Discovery, there doesn't appear to be any standard operating procedure to go back in time to adjust or fix things. Indeed, all orders appear to be reactive, not proactive in this circumstance. There were, however, departments that specifically did deal with issues when these events occurred. This would include the Department of Temporal Investigations.
Are you sure you don't want anything?
Just the truth, Captain.
You'll get it. Where do you want to start?
The beginning.
If there is such a thing.
A fun fact about the department is that it was either a part of or incorporated into Division 14 at some time. At least that was the rumor. Division 14 being a specialized Starfleet organization that worked with severe science and/or medical-related accidents. Temporal Investigations, like its name infers, researches known time travel incidents to ensure that no known contamination of the timelines occur. And when affairs of this sort would occur, they would ensure that officers acted appropriately, and if anything needed to be done that had resulted in the time change, proper measures would be taken. Though I'm not sure what they intended to do beyond just recording it. Whether the Time Bureau was an effective branch or just useless bureaucracy is not really known. And they don't really seem to be that good at their job, as we do have an episode where they missed the reemergence of tribbles, which is a big ecological deal. But anyway, the Time Bureau aside, there is one department that would be extremely competent at the utilization of time travel.
We search out and identify potential dangers to the Federation.
And once identified.
We deal with them.
How?
Quietly.
That is the one and only Section 31. Now, I will admit some of what I'm about to talk about is going to be a postulation, a theory, but it does make everything fit very, very nicely.
We got another one!
We do know that at some point the discovery of Borg technology would occur by the United Earth's Starfleet. Such technology and its existence would disappear overnight for unknown reasons. This, of course, happening after a few Borg escaped. I've theorized that this is probably due to Section 31 co-opting the project and all of the technology to be had. Borg tech would give Section 31 a massive head start on almost everything. It would ensure that they stayed one step ahead of everyone. It would also explain the amazing ability of the United Federation of Planets' capability to advance its own technology so quickly. The Federation was so advanced that literally the Dominion would say that they could turn rocks into replicators.
Now harnessing the energy for time crystal test 9 beta. Charge is at 70% and rising. With any luck, we should be able to make our first jump very soon.
Additionally, we do know that Section 31 had been working on time travel. We see this during the Klingon Federation War of 2256 to 2257. They engaged in subversive actions that would become known as the Klingon Federation Temporal Cold War. This was, of course, both the Klingons and the Federation trying to figure out how to time travel in order to defeat the other. We know that Section 31 was largely successful here, but all of their gains would either be stunted or lost when the organization was overthrown by a rogue AI known as Control. After the AI's defeat, Section 31 would be reorganized, and that's when people would basically forget about it. But here's a question. What if they continued their research and continued traveling throughout time?
Consider yourself lucky to have skipped the temporal wars. Amongst the many horrible things we discovered when weaponizing time, temporal travel can make you pretty sick. Turns out our molecules are designed to function in the time in which they're created.
However, unlike before, the organization would use it very carefully, very methodically. And ultimately, they would begin to slow drip the technology, like they did with other technologies, when they felt it was appropriate to allow Starfleet and the Federation to advance. Again, this would explain how they are so far ahead of our heroes, how they can infiltrate everywhere and everything. There's also explanations and justifications why Section 31 would let certain things occur. For instance, I don't have to have time travel capabilities to know someone's going to comment asking why didn't they stop the Dominion War. However, things generally are not black and white. They have to be nuanced. Time travel and the ability to alter time could be like what we saw with the United Kingdom and the Enigma Code. For those who don't know, Alan Turing would crack the Enigma Code in World War II, which meant a lot of German intelligence could be read and understood. However, this information, this intelligence, wasn't always used. They didn't always win every battle that they could have based on what they were reading. They didn't take advantage of everything. This was because if the Germans realized that the code had been broken, they would change it. It meant that sometimes the Allies would send people to their deaths or let them die when they technically could have stopped it. But doing that meant that they would ultimately win the war. So, it's quite possible this is what we see with Section 31, letting things like the Dominion War occur, and only making small adjustments when they had to. This was to ensure that time wouldn't be negatively altered, and others might not realize what was happening. Though, no matter what they do, eventually they would come upon someone who would figure it out, or other powers that had been using it before them. Again, this might be when Section 31 decided to start sharing it with Starfleet counterparts. It would become open and commonplace like we saw in the 30th and 31st century. Now, as I've theorized, I do wonder if the temporal power that was the Federation wasn't just an in-your-face Section 31, that anything to do with time travel really was an S-31 agent. Until we get more information, it's going to be hard to make that determination, though. It also does beg the question. Use of time travel is banned, and it's said that that's ironclad. I wonder if Section 31 actually heeds those laws. Just a thought. At the end of the day, I think there is a strong argument that Section 31 were basically the Lords of Time. But these are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below.